Ashley calls her Uncle Jack, a detective, to pick her up from the movies because her dad forgot to get her, and her mom is too busy with her other daughter Rue from Euphoria. Jack, who has a close bond with Ashley, agrees without hesitation and takes her to a diner afterward. As they eat, they talk about her father, Garrett, who is also Jack's brother. Ashley said her mama fucked the wrong brother, disappointed in her father. Garrett been trying to be the next Lil Nas X, but hasn't been able to make it. He's also involved in dealing drugs, something that frustrates both Jack and Ashley. Ashley calls her dad a failure, and Jack doesn't disagree but promises her he'll do something to help. He tells her he'll make sure Garrett gets his act together and becomes a better father to her. The next day at work, Jack is going about his usual routine when he gets a call from Ashley. This time, her tone is more optimistic. She tells him Garrett seems to be trying to improve and act more responsibly after Jack supposedly gave him an earful about being a neglectful father. Jack feels a sense of relief, hoping his words might have finally pushed Garrett to change. However, later that day, Jack receives another call from Ashley, but this one is completely different. Her voice is frantic, filled with panic and fear. Jack immediately knows something is wrong. Without wasting a moment, he rushes to her house. As he enters, he finds a gruesome scene. Garrett is dead, lying lifeless in the living room. Nearby, Susan, Garrett's wife, is sprawled on the floor, her body surrounded by blood. Even their dog, Wilco, hasn't been spared, lying motionless nearby. Jack moves through the house, dreading what he might find next. He makes his way upstairs, and his worst fears are confirmed when he opens the bathroom door. There, in the shower, he finds Ashley's lifeless body. The horrific scene haunts him as the case is ruled a murder-suicide. Jack can't help but feel responsible, believing his confrontation with Garrett might have triggered this tragedy. Jack's partner, Bobby, tries to support him through the pain, but the weight of guilt and grief hangs heavily over him. The memory of what he saw stays with him, leaving him shaken and consumed by the thought that he might have been able to prevent it. 2 weeks pass after the devastating tragedy, but Jack is far from being able to move on. Consumed by guilt, Jack struggles to focus on anything. One day, as Jack tries to go through the motions of his job, something strange happens. He receives a phone call from Ashley's number. The moment he sees her name flash across the screen, his blood runs cold. Confused and alarmed, he answers the call, but there's only static on the other end. Still, he swears he hears faint echoes of Ashley's voice buried within the noise. At first, he assumes it must be a cruel prank. Determined to figure out what's going on, Jack heads to the evidence room to check if Ashley's phone is still there. To his shock, he finds it locked away in the evidence locker, untouched. This discovery leaves him rattled. If the phone hasn't been tampered with, how could anyone be calling him from it? Unsettled but desperate for answers, Jack takes the phone with him and decides to go back to Garrett's house. There, in the empty, silent home, Jack hears Ashley's voice again, coming from the phone. Her tone is familiar, as if she's just calling him like she always used to. Jack feels a chill run down his spine. While Jack wrestles with this strange occurrence, his partner Bobby pays him a visit. Bobby tells Jack that Internal Affairs has started to investigate him as a suspect in his family's deaths. The notion shocks Jack, though in the back of his mind, he knows it's not surprising. He was close to the victims, and in cases like these, suspicion often falls on family. Bobby tries to reassure him, but Jack can't shake the feeling that things are spiraling further out of control. Not long after, Jack is called in for questioning by Internal Affairs. Agent Roger Lee leads the interrogation, and his tone is anything but friendly. Lee presses Jack with sharp, pointed questions, probing into Jack's relationship with Garrett and Susan. He even goes so far as to suggest that Jack might have wanted Garrett out of the way because he was interested in Susan. Jack denies the accusation, finding it absurd and insulting. As if the pressure from the investigation isn't enough, Jack gets another call from Ashley's phone later that day. This time, the voice on the other end is eerily specific. Ashley repeats the exact conversation they had on the day she died. She mentions how Jack gave Garrett an earful about being a better father, a conversation Jack vividly remembers. Then she talks about ordering the garlic chicken dish Jack had recommended, a small, mundane detail that sends shivers down Jack's spine. The call feels like a ghostly echo of the past, as if Ashley is speaking to him from a place where time doesn't exist. As Jack wanders through Garrett's house, speaking to Ashley on the phone, he begins testing the limits of their strange connection. In their conversation, he asks her to step outside to the shed and describe what she sees there. Ashley hesitantly agrees, walking out into the backyard and describing the items around her. She mentions finding a spray paint can, prompting Jack to give her specific instructions. Paint a big red X on the shed doors. Confused but trusting Jack, Ashley does as she's told. Jack steps outside to check, and to his utter shock, sees the red X clearly painted on the shed doors, just as Ashley described. The realization hits him that Ashley is somehow reaching out to him from 2 weeks in the past, just days before her murder. Although the situation feels surreal and beyond belief, Jack can't ignore the evidence in front of him. Determined to prevent the tragedy from happening, Jack urges Ashley to stay observant and report anything unusual. During their call, Ashley mentions seeing her father meeting with someone who arrived in a white car. Jack immediately asks her to try and note down the license plate, knowing it could be a critical lead. However, Ashley tells him that she can't make it out clearly, leaving Jack frustrated but even more desperate to find answers. At work, Jack's newfound sense of urgency leads him to obsess over the case files and crime scene photos, poring over every detail in hopes of finding a clue he might have missed. The more he digs, the more his behavior begins to stand out to those around him. His boss, Howard, takes notice and grows increasingly concerned. He approaches Jack, suggesting that it might be time for him to move on and let the case rest. However, Jack brushes off Howard's advice, unable to stop himself from diving deeper into the investigation. That big back man, sussy as hell. Meanwhile, back in the past, Ashley begins to act on Jack's instructions. Still unsure about what's going on, she starts looking into her father's activities. Following her uncle's advice, she keeps a watchful eye on Garrett, trying to uncover who he's involved with and what might have led to their deaths. Her curiosity soon leads her to stumble upon a name, Georgie. While Jack doesn't immediately recognize it, he later brings it up to Howard. Howard explains that Georgie isn't a random nickname. It's tied to a mysterious crime figure who has managed to evade capture for years. Jack begins to suspect that Garrett's dealings with Georgie went bad, leading to the murders. With every new piece of information, Jack becomes more convinced that the murders were staged and that Garrett wasn't responsible for what happened. When Jack gets home after another tense day, he finds himself under attack. A drive-by shooting targets his house, and Jack is hit in the side by a bullet. Though injured and in pain, he manages to survive. Refusing to waste any time, he drags himself to the police station despite his wounds. Bobby, noticing Jack's condition, insists that he get medical attention immediately, but Jack stubbornly refuses. While in the evidence room, Jack's phone rings again, and it's another call from Ashley. Her voice brings both relief and urgency, but Jack avoids telling her the entire truth about what's happening. Instead, he gives her clear and direct instructions. Call the police and have Garrett arrested because someone is coming to kill him. Desperate to protect his family, he also tells Ashley about drugs hidden under the bed in her house, a key piece of evidence from the crime scene that could link to whoever is responsible. Before the call ends, Jack gives Ashley Bobby's number, telling her to contact him for help. Just as he finishes speaking, the blood loss takes its toll, and Jack collapses. Moments later, paramedics arrive at the station, saving his life just in time. Ashley goes to Jack's house and questions him, but Jack doesn't know what she's talking about. Frustrated, Ashley accuses him of hiding something and tells him to leave her alone. Back at home, she finds Garrett playing his guitar while Susan listens. Ashley tries to talk to her parents, but the events still lead to her family's murder, this time happening a day earlier than before. Ashley is killed in her bedroom while trying to escape, altering the timeline Jack was in. Jack retains memories of what happened. Fearing another attack, he and Bobby prepare themselves, believing Georgie's men will come for him again. Meanwhile, in the past, Ashley rides her bike to a warehouse where Garrett is meeting with Georgie. She is spotted and chased by one of Georgie's men. While riding through a wooded area, her backpack falls into water, something Jack later recognizes from a crime scene photo. Ashley manages to escape the pursuer and calls Jack, who is under attack again and shot at. Jack tells Ashley to head to a diner, and he goes there too, sitting in the same booth she's in 2 weeks earlier. He tests the timeline connection by having her chew gum and stick it under the table, which he then pulls out in the present. He explains to Ashley that they are communicating 2 weeks apart and warns her that she and her family will be murdered unless they stop Garrett's dealings with Georgie. Jack heads to the police station to search for Ashley's backpack in the evidence room. Howard and Bobby confront him, and Jack shares what he's learned from Ashley. Bobby reveals that Roger Lee's license plate matches the number Ashley gave, suggesting Lee might be Georgie. Howard then explains that Georgie isn't a single person, but a group of corrupt cops involved in major crimes. The three leave town to investigate further. As tension rises, Howard appears suspicious, but Bobby unexpectedly shoots him, revealing that he is the one who murdered Garrett, Susan, and Ashley. "See, I knew you can't trust no fatty." In the past, Bobby discovers Ashley has been investigating and decides to silence her and her family. Bobby, who was secretly working with Garrett in the drug trade, tries to cover his tracks. When Garrett confronts him, Bobby shoots him in the face, kills their dog Wilco, and then targets Susan and Ashley. He kills Susan but fails to stop Ashley, who escapes by breaking her bedroom window after Jack had warned her it was stuck. Ashley flees to Jack's house for safety as Bobby chases her. In the present, Jack realizes what Bobby's doing and tries to stop him. Just as present Bobby prepares to kill Jack, past Jack intervenes and shoots Bobby before he can harm Ashley. The bad timeline is erased, and Jack is left comforting Ashley, who is shaken but alive. Sheet, that was kinda confusing. I'm glad it turned out to be a happy ending, though. And justice was served. What did you guys think of this one?
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.